Cool. Hey guys, how's it going? This is the Integrating RightScale Windows and .NET for Fun and Profit session. We're going to actually try to have a little bit of fun because conferences get boring, and you guys have been sitting through enough, deep technical talks. I know Joseph just had a session in here, and it was very interesting and technical and very good, but very technical. So we're going to have some of that, but we're also going to talk a little bit about the RightScale API. We're going to deal with some other concepts from a .NET perspective. This isn't necessarily meant to be .NET only. Clearly, a lot of these concepts can be translated to any compiled language or any language in general, but we'll get to that in a bit. I've got some friends from Koupon Media here, Patrick Moore and Gordon Bailey, providing color commentary as we go, and they've also got some perspective they bring to the table that they'd like to share. As far as their experience coming on board, they've got a little bit of a unique use case, and actually Patrick, not me, other Patrick, has really only been working with our platform for, 9 months? So the amount of stuff he's been able to do is pretty awesome in that short period of time. So it's interesting to share from his experience too. So again, kind of a quick high-level overview, Koupon Media guys, brief intro to the API, we'll talk about that in a moment. And then we'll do some demos. So I've got a quick walkthrough of MS Build, dev and test using TFS for a CI controller. A little bit of advanced PowerShell management. I'm not going to do a whole lot in PowerShell, but I'll kind of show you around what we've built. And what I'm calling the PHP demo. So if you guys are familiar with Dilbert, I'm trying not to say the name too many times because I don't want to get in any sort of copyright infringement things with this being published. But we're going to kind of channel our inner Wally and be as lazy as we can by putting forth as much effort as possible. So we'll play around with that a little bit, and we'll hear from Koupon Media. So a little bit about the API. We're going to be using the API 1.5. Again, if you're familiar with RightScale, we've got two sides of the house right now. We're working on bringing it together. There's API 1.0, which is for AWS, and then there's API 1.5, which is for everyone else. Given that this is a Microsoft demo, we've done this in API 1.5, and we're going to deploy to Azure. You can deploy to any of the other clouds that's not AWS using this set of tools. And then you could pretty easily port the concepts over into API 1.0 if you wished. So just a couple of quick notes. There's a ton of functionality that's exposed via this API. It's really good stuff. Pretty much everything you can do in the dashboard is here, with some notable exceptions around things like creating credentials or other dashboard level objects. It's a lot of powerful stuff. So there's the reference for it, and just a picture of how big it is. The professional services group built an open source .NET wrapper for API 1.5, and we kind of did a one-to-one as much as possible mapping of the API. So what we did was we took all of the resources and made them into static methods. We took all the media types and made them the objects themselves. If you're a .NET guy, you're looking for object models. This is a class with a bunch of static methods attached to it to return all of our methods like show, index, create, destroy. All of those are going to be implemented as static indexes. And we did as much as we could to make it one-to-one, but there are some notable cases where if you guys do go check out the code after this session, there are items where, for example, this index on instance is setting it up two ways. There's one where you can call an instance directly from the cloud. You can index all of the instances in the cloud, or you can index all of the instances in a server array. So because of that, we end up with kind of a weird naming convention where we picked one, mostly just because we thought it was the default one, and said that was just index, and then we decided the server array one was was a little bit different. We made it more verbose and just hit _ server array, and that was our method. Same basic premise, but as they map out and you see that concept in the code, that is what's going on with that. So I'm going to set up a little bit of a scenario here. We're going to go straight into demos because we like to see code. It's a lot better than just kind of talking from slides, but I want to give you a little bit of a scenario. Let's pretend for a moment that we're running a .NET shop. We've got TFS running, and we've got a standard application. It's a web app, 3-tier, but we're just going to build a CI server, so it's just going to be a single all-in-one. We're going to use a demo app from Microsoft's Patterns and Practices group called Mileage Stats. It's from their Project Silk group. It's really cool. It's an HTML5 demo, which is kind of an interesting front-end play on what they're putting out. But we've modified it a little bit, and we've got all that code up in GitHub for you to check out. So you can download and try this yourself. And the case is this, that our application, we're getting close to when we need to go to production, and our ability to deploy to multiple environments for things like continuous integration and testing, it's pretty critical at this point. So what we're going to do is we're going to follow that standard dev, dev, test, check-in, build, deploy sort of workflow. And we're going to show two different cases here. We're going to show a CI case where at every check-in we're going to deploy and check and make sure that it goes, not only do we compile, but we deploy via MS deploy. And then we'll have a nightly build that's triggered nightly through RightScale. So to give you an overview of what we're going to see in the build tasks, so this is going to consume MS build. We have a couple of custom MS build tasks based off of the Azure Storage API and the RightScale API 1.5. We're going to package with Web Deploy 3.0 or MS Deploy, take that package, put it into Azure Storage with our custom target and task. We'll take that and call out to RightScale and tell RightScale to deploy that package on an instance that we have running for our CI server. And at the end of the day, we'll have it running and get a tag in the dashboard indicating what version we've deployed. So let's check it out really quick. Let me pull this guy up. This is, everyone loves remote desktop, right? That is very dark. Is there any way we can get that any brighter? Huh. Well, that's interesting. Let me see what I can do here. Get connected first and then move it. All right, it really does not want to show. Cool. So this is our dev server. Let's let the shades go down real quick. That's I love you guys. Those are fighting words, but probably shouldn't say it out loud. But having worked with RightScale, I love open source, but certainly don't mind hanging out with some Windows people too. So as we look at this, I'll just briefly walk through it. I've got a custom MS build project here in, it's just an XML file following the XML schema for build projects. And I've basically defined three targets. One is just publish package, and what it does is it will, let's see if I can get rid of this a little bit, because I just need a little wider. So we're going to build the package itself. We're going to call MS deploy and package it via the package target. And then we're going to upload that to Windows Azure Storage. So that's going to consume some keys and just shove the file up into storage for us. The other two actually perform an additional task on top of that. The CI test will call out to RightScale, call the deploy package write script that we have associated with the server template, and just redeploy that package. The nightly build is actually going to terminate the server, bring up a new one in its place, and deploy the new package. So that's in the case where you might want a nightly fresh build or a nightly fresh instance. You can use TFS's timing mechanisms and the triggers inside of TFS to determine when that goes off, but you can prioritize how and when you build each of these. What's cool about this, though, isn't so much that it's all running MS build and MS deploy, but it's that I can't see my console window and can't show you that the build process that runs locally is actually the same process that runs on the build server. So this is quite frustrating. What I'll say here is you're going to have to trust me for the moment. Gotta love that answer. I'd be happy to demo this to anyone who'd like to see it afterwards. Again, the code's all available, and I've got the instance running, so it's not like it would take a whole lot of effort for me to pop it up and show you the thing actually running. But what it'll do, you hit execute, and inside of TFS, it picks up the job. TFS processes the compile, and then does all the same actions that you would locally if you're calling MS build or MS deploy through this process. So one of the big add-ons or add-on advantages here is that your developers are able to take advantage of the same framework that your build server is. So you can hand out an instance to a developer and say, hey, Patrick, we really don't trust you. It's not that we don't like you, it's that we don't. And because of that, we think your code is risky enough that we want to put you in your own sandbox. So you give him an instance, you give him the keys, and now from his local instance, he can come in and just build away to his heart's content and still not reconnect. We're trying here. So we're going to just go back to the PowerPoint at this point. Again, I can show this off afterwards. We'll go grab a TV outside, one of the big screens, and we can play around with it from there. So again, kind of building locally and remotely, the point of that is that you're following one process throughout, whether it's your local environment, whether it's your build server, whether it's your CI or your nightly build, one process to rule them all, and it kind of gives you consistency and continuity through the system. Code's up on GitHub. You can go check it out. Everything from the build scripts themselves to the demo app and the custom code for the targets and the underlying framework. I do want to make the point again, though, that this isn't necessarily just a TFS thing. This same MS build script can be called from other frameworks like Cruise Control or TeamCity. You can do the same thing with Ant and Maven inside of something like Cruise Control, not cruisecontrol.net, but real Cruise Control. I didn't mean that. Cruise Control and cruisecontrol.net are functionally equivalent from my perspective. But TeamCity as well does multi-platform builds. And you can get all of that information from this deck that we'll put out after the conference as well. So the next one, and again, it'll be a little difficult for me to show this, but we'll walk through it separately outside of the projector. We've got a scenario here where sysadmins like PowerShell. They just do. Whether you've kind of come to it recently, once you kind of get into it, PowerShell is a really powerful set of tools. And we want to take that familiar Windows environment and take all of RightScale and put it in. So what we're going to kind of talk about here is that environment that I had, and I'll show it in a bit as well, is that we want to tear that down using PowerShell. So maybe you'll set up a scheduled task or a job to work with to tear down instances and stand them back up in the morning. Or you'll use this, a little PowerShell script to, relaunch certain instances if someone comes to your desk and you're sitting in PowerShell and you're already logged in. So just that, kind of making the .NET framework and the RightScale API ubiquitous throughout the tool set that you're using. I want to give a quick example of how to do that with PowerShell. So luckily I took a screenshot so I can show you. This is just a quick view of launching two servers running PowerShell. You'll see the first thing we do is we establish a session, and I actually just log right in. It prompts me for my username, my password, and my account number. We will be able to use OAuth as well soon if you're more interested in using the OAuth authentication process. But then all I did was launch RS server and give it the server ID, and it's done. Obviously, this is the very manual way to do it. You can certainly script a whole lot more around this. I can see if I can pop up my notes to myself, see if that shows. But and it doesn't. That's too bad. I do have my notes on the script demo that I was going to show you that not only takes that new session, it pulls for all the deployments in that session. Then it will go ahead and terminate them in a for each loop. So the idea is you're actually passing that all back and forth in one continuous loop rather than trying to pull IDs manually. This is just my quick and easy way to very quickly demo the ability to do this from PowerShell. Again, code's on GitHub. We do have the starting of a Wix installer, so you can actually one-click install the entire PowerShell package and get one of those fancy RightScale PowerShell icons in your start bar. That will also be something that we're going to continually work on. It's not quite ready for prime time, and all of this .NET Client work is still very much in beta. We're still working on finalizing all the features and making it all available. But we have started that process to give you a shortcut on your start bar to get right into RightScale. It'll preload all the libraries for you, do the import module, and give you the ability to call the commandlets directly from that PowerShell instance. Resources are available. We're also working on getting some more PowerShell examples, some direct API PowerShell examples on our support site. So if you guys go there on an irregular basis, you check out the API 1.5 documentation examples, you'll see that we're getting more and more examples in there for PowerShell calls doing kind of parallel between curl, PowerShell, and Ruby for all of our clients. So you'll see we're getting more and more Windows and more cross-platform examples for our API. And this is where I'm really disappointed. This is going to be fun. Let me tell you, or kind of hands down, this is not intended to be a serious demo. I want to show you something a bit dramatic and a little on the ridiculous side, but I want to prove a point that we've enabled a significant amount of features just by porting into .NET. So in this case, we're going to kind of take a little inspiration from Wally and figure out the craziest way to enable laziness. And I've got an entire electronics prototyping kit here that I've built a boss button, if you're familiar with that term, or a way to figure out when my boss is on his way so that I can look busy. So to set up the scenario, this is kind of the corner, an overview of the corner of the office that professional services sits in Santa Barbara. We're kind of in the back of the building. They don't like us to be out in front, so they kind of shove us in the back by the parking lot. And I don't actually work in Santa Barbara. I work remotely, but when I do, if you're following the most interesting conference in the cloud theme, I'll usually sit around there. And if you've met Brian Adler, he's one of the other architects in professional services. He's got sessions tomorrow that I'm going to shamelessly plug on deployment checkups and how to outage-proof your applications. He sits in the corner, and our support manager, Nick, he'll sit right next to him. And here's our problem. We've got Dan, and you may have seen him around here as well. He sits kind of 2 seats over from Brian, and when he's on his way, I want to figure out what's going on. So my initial thought was, let's put a motion detector just in his office. Let's figure out when he's moving. Then I realized that wasn't such a great idea, because if he's there, if that's there, all I can tell is that he's moving. What I really care about is what direction he's going, because if he's going away from me, I don't want to waste resources. We want to be lean, and we don't want to overspend our cloud budget here. So clearly, we want to be as efficient as possible. So I figure if I put it about there, not only can I tell that he's moving, but I can use some sort of distance detector and figure out which way he's going. So I bought a bunch of fun hardware. I've got a NetDuino 1 Plus, an ultrasonic distance detector that's pretty darn accurate, a little LCD display to kind of figure out what's going on, and a human sensor module. I'm not kidding you, that's what they call it. It's not an infrared, sensor. It's a human sensor module. The link to Amazon is there if you really want to find it. And then I've got a little wireless bridge network here, and basically I've got the code set up here to run a small application that pulls the motion sensor. And when someone comes into range, it sees if they're going towards or away from me. When they come towards me, I fire a message off into a queue, and then I have an application running on my desktop that will then pop up this very, very impressive command line console showing a bunch of scrolling text. So what's the point? Well, we want to initiate that logic. We want it to fire that message to the service. The service will then start a 3-tier deployment in .NET. If you saw the session this morning, that was the application we were demoing. I was just going to pop that back up automatically. But the point is that your PHP sees the progress, praises rain down from on high, and your coworkers have no clue how you do it. So what we're going to do is leverage the RightScale API from that point inside of the workflow to deploy a 3-tier application and stand it up. And by the time your boss gets to you, within 30 seconds to a minute, you'll already see progress in the dashboard. Again, a little tough to demo that, but I certainly will after this. The code is all on GitHub. The NetDuino code, the little WinForm application I built to run the command line console as a proxy, and all the little guts of this thing are all up on GitHub. And again, it's not that hard. It's just an issue of patience. So lots of interesting things there to play around with. So at this point, what I'd like to do is hand it over to the Koupon Media guys. They've got a really interesting perspective in that coming to it, Patrick with his newfound experience in the cloud and from their scale issues and their process of automating and working in the cloud. And it's just got a really good perspective on things. And running a Windows shop, it's good to share stories. So I'll hand it over to these guys.
Thanks, Patrick.
Yep.
All right, well, we're from Koupon Media. We're out of Dallas. Just a real quick overview of what we do. Digital platform for mobile coupons. So you're walking past the 7-Eleven, and we're going to push a coupon to your phone. And if you have the 7-Eleven app, or Michael's, or whoever else we can get on board. Just digital mobile coupons. This is Gordon Bailey. I'll let you introduce yourself, actually.
Yeah, Gordon Bailey, lead infrastructure engineer for Koupon Media. Like you said, we're a digital campaign management platform. We allow companies to create campaigns and offers that they either use in their apps, or if they want, they'll have us build an app for them, or build a mobile workflow that they blast out over SMS. And we're about 1.5 years old, and we've been growing really, really rapidly. And this right here is the ops and infrastructure team.
Yeah,
and we have, I think, I can tell you actually, at this very moment, we're getting about over 100 requests per second. That's people pulling up coupons from our system.
Yep. But let's dive into it here. We've been with RightScale for about 9 months, and my background was not in anything operations or IT. It was actually marketing and advertising. So I came in very blind to the situation, not only from a cloud standpoint, but from complete, hey, that's a server standpoint. Gordon's his background is a little bit more in depth with that. Still, it was not a cloud background. So we started researching what do we want to do. We have this idea. We're on a cloud now, but there's no way to manage it. My management process at the time was for deploying code was packaging it up, MS Deploy, doing all the manual changes myself. Anywhere between 2 to 3 hours worth of a deployment. 4 to 5 times a week. Well, there's obviously inefficiencies in what we were doing, but that was just taking up a lot of our time. We'll get into that a little bit later. So where we came from, we were taking too long to do things. We were doing we had too many servers doing too little, and we were spending way too much with what we had. We knew we needed a change, and there needed to be a solution for that. So we started researching. When you type in on Google cloud management, there's not too many people that pop up, and these guys did. So let's see what we can do. So let's go to now. What we realized, we needed to do more with less. We were a small company that was embracing the cloud solution, and we needed something that was going to be more scalable than saying, okay, hey, let's just turn up a server and do all those manual steps for every single server that we turn up. That just was not a feasible solution, and from my standpoint, I don't like to work 24/7. So even if I am in operations, I don't know how that works out. So we need something that was easier, more efficient, and definitely faster. So that's where we're going in RightScale. Where we're going to go in the future, we need to get better in a lot of ways. We need more visibility, and that whole that's never enough mentality. To kind of circle back to what Michael, RightScale CEO, I can't think of his last name. Yeah, there you go. Perfect, thank you. He was talking about maturity. Cloud maturity this morning, and he kind of broke it down into I think 4 or 5 different categories: no plans, cloud watchers, cloud beginners, cloud explorers, and cloud focused. And again, when we came into this, there was no plan for cloud. I think most of our IT was.
Yeah, we basically had a collection of proof of concept systems that eventually went live and started hosting real customer traffic. Which I think is pretty standard. I don't know, for small startups, especially when you're trying to find your way and figure out what sticks. The problem is when you're talking about like disaster planning, one of the kinds of disasters I heard earlier mentioned was success disaster, which is kind of what we had. and you take off, and you have to be able to accommodate that load and that amount of traffic. But it's like, you know, being out on the wing of an airplane that's flying and having to re-engineer it at the same time.
Yeah.
And so
we grew. I mean, we obviously went from no plan to being a cloud watcher, and you know, now I consider us part of the Cloud Explorers, more cloud focused, obviously, at this point. And you know, RightScale has definitely helped us along the way. How have they helped us along the way is the next question. And we were fortunate enough to be able to work with professional services over at RightScale, and from my standpoint, coming in from a completely separate entity within a department or within a company. I don't know what that was. That was weird. But it was a whole new experience, and so that learning to ride a bike mentality for me was absolutely fresh on my mind. I'm a pretty avid cyclist, and I know that crashing on a bike is pretty painful. So if I was going to crash in this new position, it was going to be a painful experience for me. I did not want to do that. So I had my training wheels, I had my helmet, I had my knee pads, and everything all set to go the first time I walk in, and or really jumped on Skype with these guys, and you know, they were really welcoming.
No, it was like staff augmentation, basically. I mean, I think they committed to a certain number of hours, but they were basically there. I mean, either via Skype or on the phone whenever we needed them, and it was really like having just an extra set of engineers on staff to help kind of guide us towards best practices and just getting everything set up within RightScale.
And they added confidence. You know, I mean, you got to have confidence in yourself, and this isn't a lecture about believing in yourself, but it's plain and simple. You have to have confidence in what you're doing, and those teaching us are going to give us that confidence as well. And from my standpoint, again, I knew Zilch as of last August. So let's jump into a little bit more. You know, deployments, templates, scripts. Oh my! When you first look at it, it's a little. For me, it was a little overwhelming because, again, I knew nothing. But once you start getting a fresh grasp of the hierarchy of their system, it's actually quite easy and logical to work with. You know, their mentality, plain and simple, was they could set up a deployment and you know, fish for me that day and at least feed me for that day, or they could teach me how to fish and set up those deployments and work with those server templates, or those, you know, create these new scripts from a very low-level perspective, and then let me dive into it more, and maybe I'll get into fly fishing or something, you know, something a little bit more in depth with it. But that's kind of what they let me go do. And the other aspect that they really succeed well in is they treat us not like we're just another face in the crowd. As Gordon pointed out, they were pretty much there at all hours of the day and night. We worked with one of their guys over in London, so a lot of times, you know, even though I don't like to work 24/7, I was still working with the guy over there quite a bit, and he was teaching me a lot of new things. So how about your standpoint?
Oh, well, I was just going to tie this back to the original talk, which is I think with PowerShell and most of our application stack is Microsoft. We use IIS and Microsoft SQL Server with basically just the Linux HA proxy load balancers in front of that. And so we've got a lot of training from them, and
yeah, people work with people they like, and that was one of the biggest things for me coming in. Again, saying we're going to go with RightScale, not that we weren't going to do it ourselves, plain and simple. So, you know, they actually were professional, as their name states, and that was definitely a big plus for us. Okay, so the fun part here that Patrick had in his title there, for us it was there was a time-saving thing for me and a money aspect. We are a startup, you know, that money tree eventually runs out, and you want to save as much as you can now. We had quite of oh, hang on a second here. Let's see here. Okay, so the first thing we needed to realize was how much we needed to get through all the hoo-ha and realize what our time was actually valued at, and we needed to connect that whole time and money thing. Spending 4 hours on a deployment, which just plain and simple was not smart, and that's the biggest thing that was difficult for these guys, and it's difficult every time they bring on anybody or work with anybody. They have to they have the task of pointing out your inefficiencies, and you as a client, have to either accept that or not accept it. And at the end of the day, we chose to accept it, and they were right. Realizing where you need to adjust in order to grow, exactly what I just said. Spending what you actually need, not what you think you need. We thought we needed this system that was going to be, as our VP of engineering, he always points out, I need a system that's going to do 10,000 writes a second, and no, we don't need that. That's just it's inefficient for what we actually do at this point. Maybe one day I will knock on wood with that, and we'll see how that goes. Let's see here. Okay, so for time, sometimes the easy way is the right way. RightScale offered up a new and easy solution for us in terms of the scalability, in terms of the customization of the templates, the customization of anything that we had in our MS Deploy build, uploading to S3, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Let's go into it actually. Okay, so in the past it was 2 to 3, maybe sometimes 4 hours for a manual, very tedious deployment process that was wrapped up in a lot of human error. I do get tired, and sometimes I'll hit that Q instead of the W there, and things happen. We are human, and if you can automate things that are going to be consistent every single time you do it, that's absolutely the way to go. So we need to get past that. Currently, are just right into RightScale. After they went through a little learning curve with me, we can do a deployment anywhere between 45 minutes and an hour. It's a quick 4 easy step process. I just press play and let it do its thing. It's very consistent, and again, I know what to expect every single time I run it. So we were talking about DevOps earlier, and we work quite closely with our dev team. But when they come to us and say, my server isn't working, or the dev system isn't working, well, listen, our process is the same thing every single time. It's very consistent. What's going on? Oh, I went in and changed a config, a config file. Well, that probably is why it's not working now. So, it just comes right down to it. Okay, in the future, and currently what we're working with a little bit on API 1.5, we were able to recently work with again with the PS team and develop an all-in-one type button. Again, we use write scripts. You can use PowerShell directly if you want. We use the write script where basically we build an MS Deploy package, upload it to S3, and then also all of our static content as well. And it deploys it into several different buckets that we have just a comma separated value. It works 15 minutes, 25 minutes for me is okay, great. I can still go have a nice beer afterwards or something, So it's quick, easy, and efficient, and it's definitely a new little PR personal record for myself. Okay, cost. Cutting branches off the money tree. Okay, this was definitely a big one for our CEO. Again, those trees eventually stopped growing, and we needed to find a pretty quick solution. In the past, we were spending, we had X amount of servers, and we were spending X per month. We were definitely not utilizing the full potential of that server, or even close to it, and yet we still thought we needed more. And I'm going to go back and circle back to say, you need to realize what you're actually going to need and what you don't need. And again, that is very difficult for any, maybe to your clients, if you have clients, you can't look at them and say, you're doing this wrong. But they were very politically savvy about it, and they did it very well. So we also were not utilizing a full, the full aspects of multiple services that we were paying for, and that was just killing us. So we needed to get somewhere else. Okay, so currently we have Y servers costing us the same amount that X servers was. Now X being a lot less servers. Let's just throw out some numbers. We had 25 servers in the past. Now we have 50, and it's still costing us the same amount of what we were paying. And that came plain and simple down to being more efficient in what we were doing. We had fully customizable templates. This is, of course, after we came on with RightScale. Fully customizable templates, scripts, and servers, and definitely utilizing more of it. And my new favorite thing, again, working with these guys last couple weeks, we built a Terminator, is what we're calling it, server. And
Scheduler.
Scheduler. I mean, it really is just that, but One of their guys, again, Mr. Pop over in London, that's his baby, I guess, that and Siege. He built it. Yeah, he's great. Him and his Transylvanian accent. But he built this Terminator, this template, and allows us to go through in any deployment and really say, okay, I want this server on this schedule, and every night, or it runs every hour, and it's able to say, okay, it's going to turn down between this time and this time. And right away, we've seen a huge difference.
Yeah, well, I mean, so obviously, like, production's going to stay up 24/7, but dev, QA, UAT, and staging, after 8 o'clock, reasonably, nobody should be needing those.
We have salespeople that think they do.
Yeah, well, and we have some tight deadlines, but and so we can enable those to stay on. But it's not. It's been a huge cost savings, and we've been able to take basically the money we've saved from that and apply it to other projects. And so,
yeah,
I don't know, this one SOW with professional services, I think, had an ROI of like 1 month.
It was 3 months, and so my sell point to my CEO is, if you spend this amount now, I promise you, you'll get it back within 3 months. And actually, on my estimating, I always estimate on the conservative side. So that's what that is. But actually, the first month is in, and I've actually we will get a complete ROI in 1.5 months. So that's just based on turning off the servers at night. And again, there was the plan to cloud talk earlier. Some of you may have been in. We haven't even utilized that aspect yet. And again, that goes back to me saying we're not even utilizing the full aspects of the service we're already paying for. So we just need to become more efficient. And that word is definitely key in a lot of our companies, efficiency. So what do we need to do in the future? We need to get away from taking the shortcuts, saying that okay, it's going to be cheaper this way, when all that whole saying, do it right the first time, and you don't have to do it again. I absolutely have been raised that way, and that's just how I think we should, we need to do business more that way. And again, realizing what you actually need compared to what you want. I really want like a Corvette, but do I really need it? No, not at all. So, yes, okay. So, anyways, there we go. Thank you very much. Oh, thanks, Patrick.
Hey,
appreciate it.
So, if you've met Mr. Pop, the use case for you guys, if I remember correctly, is that you were using like M1 XLs, and he came back and said, you really just need a C1 medium for this instance. Yep. And I think that was one of the big, it's like half the cost.
Absolutely.
Right there.
And he hits on it directly. I mean, again, we had our VP of engineering go in initially and say, oh, we just need the biggest and the best. And I didn't know any better to say why. He had the experience. So Alex came in and he told us what we needed to do.
Yeah, so the moral of the story is, if you talk to Alex, he's going to suggest that you use C1 mediums. But it's really not a bad idea. There are some interesting advantages from a CPU perspective for things like load balancers that, it just works really well. So try a C1 medium. That's the moral of the story. Yeah. That's the end of the formal deck. I've got a bunch of reference slides that are more technical. If you guys have questions, let's do that. And again, this deck will be available pretty quickly right after this session. I do apologize that the demos didn't work out as planned with the projector, but certainly I'm happy to walk you guys through that, on one of the big screens or on another projector.
So first of all, thanks for sharing your experience. I had a similar experience with RightScale about a year ago, and I worked with Mr. Pop and Mr. Dean at the time to get it all up and running. But what I was wondering is, have you found a nice way to have a cookbook-like functionality for PowerShell or /RightScale scripts?
I think I heard your question in
a
previous course, and no, is the short answer. But like I think his direct answer was they're working on it, and I don't know what they're working on. You can tell me.
How about API 2.0? When can we see that? Because I've been looking at that for 8 months now.
API 2.0. Hopefully I get this right, so I'm going to defer to Ryan O'Leary for the official answer, who isn't here, but you can chat with him later. But I believe that API, what used to be called, unification of the APIs, it really will be API 1.5 plus. API 2.0 is they don't consider it a major release, I guess. I don't really know the full reason behind that. I know that there's a lot of back-end changes that are happening to do some more enablement around Cloudflow and around those types of higher-end API-centric activities. So 2.0 is a different effort that is unified, but there is a unified 1.5. But to answer your question as well on the cookbook-like setup for PowerShell, there is a really sneaky way to do it. And the engineering team actually has done this in a tarball that they drop in a specific script that's, I think it's like sys install PowerShell libraries. And you can actually shove all of that into a specific directory on a server, and they call all of that, time and time again, and they version it as a tarball package inside of a write script, which is a set of functions in a well-known structure of files. Is it the right way to do it? Maybe. I don't have a particularly strong opinion one way or another. It's one way to solve the problem. Yeah. I'll be interested to see what happens when we get some GitHub integration, if possible. I'm not sure that really would be the right answer either, because it is a Windows-centric perspective on the world. So as I'm writing more commandlets in C#, I'm finding that to be much more interesting. But again, I don't think that's the prescription I'd give to everyone either.
I think I have a much easier question.
Yes!
I'm pretty new to RightScale in general. I'm coming out here to see all this stuff. It's fabulous, and your story's great. I really appreciate hearing it.
Thank you.
This is a real simple one, and I guess from the Microsoft kind of, so RightScale, I've come to understand, is making the, it's kind of like putting their, going to the different public cloud providers and putting the images and I guess re-rolling them with like a right link injected component so that you stack on top of that with all the scripts and so on. And I've seen a lot of screenshots and demos that work with projectors, that showed like the open source OSs. And I'm wondering, is it fair to say that like Microsoft OSs are there too? And again, it's like a totally newbie question, but like, is there Microsoft OSs you pick that have the right link integrated as well? I mean,
so the answer to that is that we take the cloud's base images and we go and install RightLink on it, and then we repackage it with a sysprep generally. Okay, so we'll actually create images.
That answers it. You do it with Microsoft as well, obviously.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
So we provide 4 basic sets of server templates. We've got a base with basically nothing on it, IIS, which is a full IIS with MS Deploy, and SQL Server, which enables synchronous mirroring. We've also got an Active Directory template that is set up to enable bidirectional mirroring as well.
And then after that, RightScale takes over, push all the other steps down.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yep.
And it's all PowerShell via write scripts.
Very easy to learn, actually. I mean, from my standpoint, again, I don't know how much experience you've had with it, but I was able to go in and start creating scripts within the first couple weeks, honestly. And again, you can never learn enough, right? So you always got to have that mentality that never enough. So.
Okay.
Yep. Absolutely. Yep. We actually did a migration from one cloud to another, and using again PS, and I feel pretty comfortable if we ever needed to do that again, we could actually do it on our own. And see, that's the cool thing, is they're okay with that. That's what they want us to do, and so.
Yeah, and there's a bit of a strategy as it relates to building those multi-cloud images. There's this kind of long-standing question is whether you bake something into the base image. So a lot of people who come from an Amazon perspective will say, well, why don't I just put that in my AMI? And server templates really encapsulate a lot of that to enable you to runtime install them. But obviously for any platform, you're going to sacrifice configurability or boot time. So you got to kind of balance that out and make that decision as you build you can build your own images, or you can utilize the base ones that we provide.
So it makes sense. You guys like have 4 windows that are kind of pre-rolled, and and after that, it's kind of like these are the ones that make sense generally for the most bias audience, and then after that, it's all post.
Yep, and the server template that I use in my demo is published and publicly available. So it's actually a SQL Express IIS install at boot from a base image.
Okay.
So it does the full runtime, and it takes about 50 minutes to boot in Azure. It takes about as long in every other cloud that I've tried so far. It's a hefty install. It's downloading 1.5 GB worth of data and doing a full SQL install, SQL Express at least.
Got one last dumb question. I think, like in the domain joins and that, like, historically VMs cloning and coming up is always a nightmare with SIDS and that. Like, do you guys, is there a solution to that? I mean, I haven't learned much about Azure. Is it like you guys just do that as a net dom join or something at the end of the script to get it on? Or
yeah, it's actually, there's a DNS register,
Yeah.
register script that I think it's
so
actually
okay.
It's
one of those things that you have to keep outside the canned image because it doesn't clone well.
Yeah, I mean, and again, there are so many scripts. It's a full library of scripts, and I go through there pretty regularly and find new things that I just go through and mess with, and then you can clone them and take what you want out of them, and even the templates, you can disable certain scripts or just clone the template and do what you want with it. It's very, very customizable.
Yeah. Domain join is kind of close to my heart because it's a painful process to automate in the cloud when your IPs are shifting on you.
Yeah.
We've done a little bit of work related to using tags in the dashboard to deal with discovery of domains. So inside of a deployment, if you've got a domain controller, doing like a tag scrape to look for a specific scope and say, well, here's my domain, and here's the IP address of this domain controller, and using that in my domain join. It's stuff that we've been working with engineering on, actually, and we've fed that feedback actually from you guys and from other clients back to the engineering team to continually upgrade and work on that domain join process. Yeah. Yeah, we'll release another set of server templates, I believe, in the next 3 to 4 weeks, which will be a new rev on top of what we have, and we're going to be enabling a lot of cool features. There's some AD stuff that is coming, maybe not in this release, but possibly in the next. There's a number of new features that are cloud-related that we're enabling. Like if you're familiar with AWS and the PV drivers, the paravirtualization stuff, I know that they've been working on that as well. So a lot of those things, as they come out, as we refine our process, that feedback goes back to engineering. They make it bulletproof, and then they hand it out. And bulletproof is probably a bad way to put it.
Yeah, I was going to say, then I tear it apart.
Then you tear it apart.
It's wonderful, actually. Any other questions?
Cool. Anything else, guys? Awesome. And like I said, I'm going to be around all day today, all day tomorrow. My contact info